Engineer producer Mark Howard says the big artists that he's worked with, they all kind of have one thing in common. Well, a few things. But there's one main thing, and you won't be surprised by this, the people who are on the higher level. And some of them have a few things that aren't that great in common, but he explains it all in this clip on Rock History Music. You said before that the gentleman that I just prefaced a while ago, he asked you, so what is it about, the big artists? It was a great question. Is there a common denominator between the big artists? And you said they're all well read, which makes so much sense.
It's crazy, like when you start looking at it, and how where they get some of their lyric lines is like working with Robert Plant. He comes into the studio and he's got his satchel and he goes, "This is all the songs of all the women I've loved and hated," and and then on top of that, he's got this William Blake poetry book, right? And so as we were kind of looking for new songs, he's looking through there and picking up some cool lines out of them. And so when I look back at Time Out of Mind, I was looking through one of these poetry books one day, and then sure enough, there it is, black and white, Time Out of Mind. You lifted that from there. It's like, you bastard. They're all thieves. Tom Waits is like, he takes like chunks right out of the New York Times and, like doesn't, that's it. Boom. It's like they're all thieves.
Someone had died in rock and roll, and I talked to a bandmate like 2 years ago, and I was asking him. I said, "You know what? I'm 62, and the guy had like at least 15 years on me. Oh, I was younger then, obviously. But I asked him. I said, your friend came close to death, and you're thinking about. I mean, you can't cheat the hangman, but sometimes, as Patrick Simmons would say in the Doobie Brothers, what did that do to you as far as being a man on this earth, doing what you did? No one can cheat that. I mean, it hit you.
Yeah.
How did it make you think about your immortality, or how did that change you?
Um, it was weird because I never thought I was ever going to die. And I had stage 4 cancer, and everybody had me pegged to die. They thought there's no way you're going to come back. Once it goes to stage 4, it's really hard to become a survivor, because it was,
Well, as
but
they say, there's no stage 5.
yeah. So that's the end of the line. And so, because it was spreading rapidly, I had skin cancer, melanoma cancer on my shoulder here. I took my kids to Hawaii, and my one daughter, Taya, she goes, "Dad, what's that black spot?" I go, "That's just a mole." Because you should have that looked at. I said, all right. So after our Christmas thing there in Hawaii, I went and booked an appointment at the dermatologist. And he said, "Yeah, that's cancer. I'm cutting it off right now." And he didn't do any testing on it. He just cut a big, huge hole in my shoulder. And so sure enough, it was healing, and it was like this. It was like this, size of, pretty big, that he cut out. He just wanted to make sure there was nothing around it. But because he cut that out, and what happened is oxygen got in there and fed it, and it started to feed. And so he said, "I want you to go see a cancer doctor." And so I made an appointment. And so, yeah, sure enough, it was, but it was spreading. By the time I got to the cancer doctor, it spread to my liver and to my spleen. And I thought, oh shit. So they put me on this clinical trial right away, which was kind of crazy, and was in Los Angeles. And so they almost killed me because my insurance wouldn't only cover a certain amount, but clinical trials, it's free. So I did all this testing, and my blood came back and it wasn't the right type for this thing. So I couldn't do it. So I had to, and then my insurance wouldn't cover it. So then I came back to Canada, and went to Princess Margaret Hospital, and this Dr. Butler, he's like the master of skin cancer, melanoma. He's got a laboratory in the basement, and he's got all of his kind of like crazy kind of like trials that he's putting on to see if they work. And he says, "I have this one trial that they haven't approved yet in Canada, but I can start it with you." And so it was kind of a little bit touchy. And so part of the it was called immune therapy, and it's become really popular now. And so, but it only works on 40% of the people, and not everybody gets it. And so we started on that. But part of the clinical trial was I was supposed to get this injection into the tumor to ignite the immune therapy to go fight it, and it will eat it, and well, it's eaten, it'll eat the cancer off my shoulder. And so we started with that, but Canada hadn't approved the injection part of it, and only just kind of the drip that they put in your arm like a chemotherapy. And then so I had to go back to Los Angeles to get these injections that were approved by this other doctor there. And so I got 2 shots of this, and what it was a herpes simplex virus that they pumped into me. It's not herpes, but it's like the same kind of like kind of way it's built. And so they injected that into the tumor, and the tumor went down. It was flat. It was like a baseball on my shoulder. You know, it was like huge, like big black boil like thing. It was horrible, like an alien or something. And so we did the injection into it, and then sure enough, 2 weeks later, it come down. And so I was scheduled to go to another one, and the hospital, or they wouldn't approve the second one because it was $30,000 a shot. And so he said, well, we got one in the fridge. We're supposed to throw it away. And so he went behind the door, and, I got another shot of it. And then after that, I had to come back up and finish the rest of my treatment. And so I did 2 years on this, and it wiped it out. And so I after, while I was waiting for all these things, it had gone to my brain, and then I had to have like emergency brain radiation and stuff. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the back of my hair, it's like black here. And then
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so that's where the radiation stopped. Where that's black is my natural hair, and then the radiation was on top. That's why all my hair went white, my eyebrows and eyelashes. And I thought I was going blind for a while because everything was so blurry. Yeah. But my eyelashes are white. Oh, and so what that does, it just kind of blurs everything. When they're black, levels it out. But so it's kind of weird. But anyways, yeah, it was a long story and just kind of going back and forth. But I the whole time I never thought I was going to die.
But what is that?
People thought I was going to die, and
of course they did. But what is that in you? What do you think you do you? I don't want to get all new agey, but are you a type of person that knows things intrinsically? I mean, how I would have been shaking through my boots, but that's a real knowing that, and you didn't die.
Yeah,
here you are.
Yeah. Well, I did this also while I was doing this treatment. I researched myself, because doctors only tell you so much. I would say, well, what should I eat? Should I, kind of eat? He goes, eat anything. But then you research it, sugar's bad, it feeds the cancer. And so I stopped all sugars and stuff like that. And so a friend of mine was making some marijuana oil. And so he gave me a jar of this marijuana oil, cannabis oil. And so I would just put a little bit on a cracker every night and eat it. And then I would go, and I did that for a month, and I went in, and Dr. Butler was like, wow, this is amazing. This is really working fast on you. I said, well, I'm doing this other thing too. He goes, keep doing it. And like, he promoted me to do this cancer thing. And so, yeah, sure. So I think between the immune therapy and then eating this cannabis oil, I think it really worked faster than it was supposed to. And so it saved my life, I think. So my brother in England, I was telling him about this whole thing, and he got prostate cancer. And so he went in to have it done, and marijuana is illegal in England. So we had to sneak it to get him some of that. And so he did that for a couple of months. And then he went back and got scanned, and they couldn't find the prostate cancer. And they said, we know it's in there, but we can't see it. And so it's it's kind of crazy how it all works. But so it worked on me, worked on him. And then I have friends here in Los Angeles, and their kid has crazy illness, and so they doctors can't help him, and they give him some, and it calmed him down, and it worked with their child. So, but you can't really go around telling people that stuff. But yeah, so it's you got to be your own doctor in the way, like you can't just trust them, because doctors are, they want you on certain kind of drugs so that they get payback from the drug company, and like you don't know who's telling the truth, so you have to make it upon yourself to kind of choose which avenue you're going to go down. And because he said if I would have done chemotherapy, I would have died. He says most people that do chemotherapy die, and so and he said, 2 years ago, there was no immune therapy and you probably would have died. And he said, I can keep you alive for at least a year and on this thing. And it's like, okay. I was like, so you get, fed this scary stuff. And, the doctor here in Los Angeles was this German guy. And he was the one that broke the news to me that had gone to my brain. I was supposed to start this immune therapy. And so I go there with my daughter and we're waiting in the chair for them to put it in me. And the nurse comes over and she goes, the doctor wants to talk to you. I said, all right, we go in and there's Dr. Burz. He's German. And it's like, I have some bad news. I'm like, what? He goes, the cancer has now gone to your brain. And I'm like, we need to do emergency radiation. And I'm like, what? I'm going to die now. And my daughter started crying. I was crying. He was crying. It was it was pretty crazy. So I ended up doing this radiation and I had this crazy thing called brain fog. And I was like out there, like a complete zombie. Yeah. So, and it kind of appears every now and again. This cloud kind of comes and I get all weird and then suddenly it kind of disappears. But I think it's all to do with, them messing with my brain.
Yeah.
But
before they gave you radiation and before he told you it was in your brain, did you feel any different?
No, I felt totally like lucid? I never had, other than just the pain, a little bit of pain from the bulgingness of the tumor. That was about the only pain I had. And then once it was down, they shrunk it down to my shoulder. There was no real side effects. And then once I went on immune therapy, the only side effect was that I was itchy all the time. And so it's on different people. It works different ways. And so it was all kind of crazy events. I'm probably going to write a book on cancer pretty soon. So
I think your story is an amazing story. I mean, I replayed, I forget who it was. I can tell you right now. Because like I said, the NWC interview you did, that channel. Okay. I love the way you were talking about it, but anyone, I mean, the classic rockers love my channel because I talk to them. They never look at me and say, you look old, because they're freaking old too. And they're all 10 years older than me. But I noticed that when I talk about it's strange, right? You're not surprised by this, but death, health, diet. I like your story about, the fact that no carbs on Iggy Pop. But we'll talk about that in a second. But they're thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's important to them. They don't, of course, Aunt Louise or, Grandpa Bob or whatever, they're all dealing with this kind of stuff. So I think it's a great idea. And you talk about it because you've been there, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. So, I was trying to give back and I was doing these concerts. I did one in Toronto and brought, Sarah McLachlan, the biggest artist I knew of Canada, and Randy Bachman and Sam Roberts. And so it worked out really great. So I got some money for I wanted to make money for Dr. Butler's immune therapy treatments for those people. And so he was happy about that. And he came to the show and he did a little speech. It was pretty good. And so you got to give back. So I just try to do everything I can to promote, immune therapy and marijuana oil.
Links to both of Mark Howard's books are in the description where you can pick them up. One is the storybook, basically telling the stories about working with all the greats: Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Tom Waits, Tragically Hip, and so many more. So we'll have links to both books. Like I said, the first one's the storybook. The second one is basically the pictures book. We've showed you some pictures in the videos. Links to that and a lot more. If you want to help the channel, there are links. Subscribe. Check out our podcast. It's a fairly new podcast. It's doing really, really well. And you can hear a lot of our full interviews on our podcast. Share our videos and podcasts and like, comment. We'd appreciate that. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.